Truth Seeker and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the Truth Seeker podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark-sided!
Streaming live at truthseeker.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, Truth Seeker.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Truth Seeker. This is the Truth Seeker podcast. Thank you guys for spending this time with me. I'm excited, delighted to be here with you guys. Again, everybody who's over from the last interview, we just got done with one interview, was awesome. Got into some awesome topics and discussion and kind of shared a piece of my heart there at the end. So make sure that you go back and listen to the previous one as well. Thank you guys for hanging out with me in the chat. Everybody who's come over from that episode as well. Thank you guys for hanging out. Want to start this podcast off by saying thank you again to all the patron supporters that we have. We're growing. The community's growing there. So many people who are resonating with the work. So many new people listening to the podcast, and people are asking me, because I'm doing this full time now, and they say, is the podcast growing? I just respond daily, like literally daily. Everything's growing. The numbers are growing. The people, the listeners, the supporters. So thank you guys for the work that you're doing over at Patreon, that you guys believe in my work to join with me. So thank you guys. If you want to support what I'm doing, head on over to patreon.com/truthseeker. There you get access to my entire discography, which is like 10 plus albums. You get access to all the new music that I'm working on as well. Every time I finish a song, it's uploaded there for you guys to check out. My music videos, all that good stuff. I just put out a new video for my song Alpha, so make sure you check that out. The new pre-order's ready for the new album, Seer, that's going to be dropping on 4/20. We're also doing a album release party on 4/20 as well, so it's a free concert. If you guys want to travel down here to Mobile, Alabama, where I'm at, and be a part of that concert and hang out with me, I'd love to have you guys. So check out all the info, which is on Patreon, truthseeker.com, all that good stuff. You'll be able to check out what we're doing. So also, patrons also get access to the School of the Mystics. This is something that we're doing every Thursday night. It's really a hangout session, prayer, activation, just really getting open with one another, kind of getting candid, getting to actually meet you guys, hear your story, and just hanging out, really. But this Thursday, we're starting something new. We're going to be starting the it's a online course that we're doing. It's by Chris Valatin, called The Basics of Prophetic Ministry Training. So we're going to be talking about how to tap into the higher consciousness, to hear God's voice, and how God is speaking through us through everything in our lives, and how to kind of focus in on that voice of what God is speaking to us, and also what God is speaking through us for other people. So I really believe in that, and we're talking about doing these prayers and activations and stuff like that. So the sessions are going to be really short. I'm pretty sure we can knock the teaching out within just a few minutes, but then there's group discussion, and then there's contemplation and activation as well. So make sure you guys tune in 7 p.m. Central, School of the Mystics. That link is on my website as well. So thank you guys for all the support. You guys are awesome. So with that being said, I'm excited for this interview today. I'm always excited to talk about music, so I have something in common with this next guest, some awesome music at that, and some talking about spirituality and just really embodying awakening. So I think that's really cool. We're going to hear about her story today. Joining me on the podcast is Dhanya. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, thank you for having me. It's exciting.
Awesome, man. Thank you for being here with me. I heard your new single featuring MC Yogi. Yes. It was awesome. The single is entitled Another Lifetime, and it's off of your debut album, which is self-titled, same name. So awesome song, man. I love MC Yogi, and I was introduced to pretty much your work through that collab, right? I seen his name on there, and I'm really getting into your work. Your videos are awesome. You did a video for a song called Fire, which everybody needs to go check out. Really good stuff.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a super exciting collaboration to work with MC Yogi.
Heck yeah. So have you been doing like a lot of festivals and things like that? A lot of concerts or?
Well, a lot of my audience right now is mostly in yoga studios. I traveled and did kirtan with the group, the Mayapuris. And so as a supporting musician with them, I made a lot of really strong connections and relationships with people in the kind of yoga studio circuit. So that's mostly where I've been doing stuff now. But we're also doing, festivals of color and just trying to get the music out there since it was just released. We're trying to see, kind of spread the seeds far and wide and see what grows where.
Mm-hmm. So talking about the subject matter, we're talking about spirituality and awakening and stuff like that. I'm really interested to hear your story, to hear what kind of got you into yoga, the healing practices and things like that, and understanding the healing therapy of music, the music being able to kind of sing over people and just inspire and spark creativity within people, which is healing in general. So let's talk a little bit about it. When we're talking about spirituality, or awakening, what was some of the earliest experiences that you had maybe as a kid? Like, a lot of people are very sensitive to the spirit realm. Maybe they have paranormal encounters or see angels and things like that. You have any of those encounters from when you was younger?
Well, my parents raised me in the Bhakti tradition. So it's the tradition that was kind of founded and based in India. And so a lot of my practices growing up were kind of inherently mystical, inherently spiritually charged. We had altars in our home, and we would sing prayers, by chanting. We had mantra meditation, solitary mantra meditation, like on beads, japa, and then also, group mantra meditation, kirtan. So a lot of our focus growing up was definitely coming in contact with that. And we also kind of read a lot of philosophy. We, our primary book is the Bhagavad Gita. So a lot of reading the Gita, but also, growing up with the kind of mystical practices of Catholicism. My mom's family is Catholic, and, even very kind of nature-oriented experiences growing up in Venezuela, being in contact with very raw forms of nature. I also experienced that, especially in my teen years, as a very strong kind of spiritual awakening. So I would say I had a pretty eclectic blend. My parents were very open to me exploring different forms of spirituality and kind of finding my own way. But definitely, the root practice for me, especially growing up, was Bhakti yoga.
Where does that, as far as the Catholicism come into play? Is it just more like the ritualistic, more conservative type aspects of your faith, or was there any of the spirituality involved in that as well?
I think the spirituality in the Catholicism that I was in touch with was very community oriented. It didn't feel so ritualistic. That structure is kind of always there, but it was very community oriented. It had a lot to do with service. It had a lot to do with developing the qualities of kind of compassion, forgiveness, seeing unity across all faiths, and also a lot of focus on the divine feminine, which is
yes, that's awesome you say that. Yeah.
really characteristic of especially Latin American cultural kind of Catholicism. So a lot of understanding the divine feminine, divine feminine, manifesting miracles, things like that was definitely something I was strongly exposed to.
That's cool that you mentioned being in Catholicism somewhat and being able to see the beauty of all paths through that. Because like the word Catholic or Catholicism means the universal religion. So essentially, man, like you could be a part of that and still have you could be open. You don't have to be set to Jesus, Mary, and God. Every religion has these three type of holy trinities with the Father, Son, and Mother for the most part, and which is awesome that you actually experience that. A lot of people would speak against it, and they come at it from like a place of judgment from like the Christian community and stuff, and they would talk about how the veneration of the mother and the veneration of the woman is done in Catholicism, and there's really like they're taught on this. God is a father, and we need to worship the Father. But when you get into it and understand like the roots of religion, that if it's just the masculine or if it's just the feminine, then I think things are kind of out of whack and out of balance. But we really have both sides, which is in everything, whether you're following that or not. It's there, and so for us to get in touch with that is that's where the power lies, with the balance. So what would you say to that, like kind of merging the two? Because we see some people like it's all about the divine feminine or it's all about the righteous father or whatever the case is.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that, inevitably, because humans are the ones that are practicing it, there's kind of inherent flaws in kind of any religious institution, just like in any institution, religious or not. So we kind of project whatever our boundaries are onto our understanding of the divine, right? But what I was taught from a very young age, and it's a foundational understanding in Bhakti Yoga, is that the divine is masculine and feminine. It can't be exclusive of anything, because that's what the absolute divine is. It means all contradictions lie within it. All forms, the whole spectrum of masculine to feminine expression and everything in between is included there. So it's not even like a balance of two things. It's the balance of all things. Everything is included in there. And that's, for me, one of the most satisfying things about Bhakti Yoga, that it has an equal emphasis on kind of all aspects of the divine. And there's, even when we chant, the Maha Mantra, which is our primary mantra, you're acknowledging the divine masculine, the divine feminine in equal proportions throughout the entire mantra. So that's for me, it's like a very comprehensive, complete understanding of, the divine nature.
So talking about like the mystical aspects of your faith and stuff like that, is it open for angelic encounter, interdimensional beings or whatever? People talk about going into meditation, connecting with their higher self and angels and things like that. Have you experienced that kind of stuff? Was that common for you growing up, or is that maybe a different path to take in the religion itself or the practice itself?
So the practice itself kind of inherently is transcendent, right? So our philosophy is based on the principle that sound is the purest form, and it creates consciousness. So sound precedes consciousness. And so because you're coming in contact, the more pure the sound is that you're coming in contact with, the greater your ability to connect to all living beings and see that kind of divine spark lies within all of them. So in that, of course, that means that you have access to higher planetary systems, lower planetary systems, an expanded vision of your current planetary system, all kinds of different beings. The goal is to be able to see all of those beings as equal kind of in value. And so that's a big part of our practice. As far as things that feel like kind of supernatural phenomenons and like, I personally don't feel like I've had experience in that realm. I know many people who have had that experience. I don't know necessarily that our practice is designed specifically with that purpose, but it kind of happens inevitably because what you're doing is kind of breaking out of these thick layers of kind of just material, of just matter. And so the further outside of matter you go, the more you come in contact with subtle energies, the more you come in contact eventually with, your inherent spiritual energy and that of others. So it's definitely in the process, though it's not really, my experience.
You don't kind of go into it to connect. Like if
Right.
it happens type deal.
Right.
Exactly. It kind of sounds like it's a spiritual experience and encounter in itself, just to be connected with the universe, with God, with all energies or whatever, and being at one. Like that in itself is, like you say, transcendent. And like there's not a lot of people who. I think there's not a lot of people who can come to terms with that, or kind of just being with one, because there's so much inner turmoil within themselves or within their religious practice or faith or contradictions that they can't get over. But you're talking about embracing it all and being one with it all. So that's a spiritual connection in itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cool thing about mantra meditation is that it's not tied to a faith. You don't have to have a certain set of spiritual beliefs. You don't have to even be convinced of anything. The cool thing about kirtan and mantra meditation is that you can come with all of your doubts, with all of the contradictions, with all of the, shortcomings that you may be experiencing or that you may experience from others. And you sit down and you do the practice, and you just being there and doing it is the practice. The means and the goal are the same, which is to come in contact with pure sound and allow the sound itself to kind of do its work and undo all the layers. So definitely, it's such a powerful way of connecting directly to a spiritual practice without having all like the trappings of, ritual and institution and, all of those things.
It's so funny, man, because like I've had a lot of people start telling me about the faith and stuff, and like, you should look into it, bro, this type of things, because they're listening to my podcast and they're listening to some of the things that I'm talking about, and it's like, dude, if you haven't looked into it, it's right up your alley. And like everything you're saying is where I'm approaching life or spirituality from. And I come from the Christian tradition or whatever, but understanding it even more, even the scriptures, even the Bible, of what the Bible really teaches or whatever, some of the spiritual teachings of allegory that is kind of woven throughout the scriptures are teaching what I believe you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So about oneness, about all of it, everything's God. Like everything is the universe, and it's all good. You know what I'm saying? Even the bad stuff that we deal with, the stuff that we don't understand, but all of it being used for this divine, beautiful purpose, and to kind of be at one with that and not fight it, not be against it, not trying to be right or having to prove your stance or whatever. It sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's essentially it, basically. God means the all-inclusive. Everything is an expansion of God's energy, because if there's something that wasn't a part of God's energy, then God wouldn't be God.
Yeah.
That's the essential understanding. And so kind of connecting with that and seeing like, okay, even the material is an expansion of God's energy. So it's not that it's not real, it just means it's not permanent.
So is there like the expressions, would it be like a form of Hinduism? Is there expressions of the different gods and goddesses that are venerated as well in the practice?
Yeah, definitely. For Bhakti Yoga, kind of Hinduism is kind of a distillation, let's say. It's something that kind of came out of Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is just the process, right? And so all forms of devotion, all forms of devotional service especially, are considered Bhakti Yoga, which means that you could be doing Bhakti Yoga as a Catholic, student, as a Jewish student, as a student of Islam, as, in any faith you could be practicing Bhakti Yoga, because Bhakti just means loving devotional service. But originally, yes, our scriptures come from India, and a lot of important historical events happened in India according to, our understanding and our practice. A lot of our places of pilgrimage are also in India. So it's related to Hinduism in the sense that a lot of the typical Hindu personalities that are worshipped are also worshipped in Bhakti Yoga. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you about that, because like coming to the understanding of what I've come through with the scriptures, with the Hebrew Bible, I understand that like the characters and the people named King David, Adam, Solomon, like all of these people are expressions and allegory of us, of our psyche, of things that we go through in life, these different personifications that on the human experience or on the spiritual experience, we're going to kind of play out each one of those roles at some given point, right? And we're going to kind of relate to those people. We're not reading their story, we're really reading our story. Would it be safe to say, because I've in my studies, it's kind of getting close to this, is that somewhat of the Hindu gods would be not like, oh, you worship 1,000 gods is what people would say. Is it more of just these different expressions of one, all, or even of yourself, of the different things about you, about your personality, your psyche, the things that you go through, that you would have an image of that god or an image of that personification that is about this certain aspect of one presence? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it totally does make sense. And I think that this is something that gets debated sometimes, and it's definitely there's different perspectives. From the perspective that I kind of adhere to and that I've been taught, it's that, these different personalities, you hear about Hanuman and Lord Shiva and Brahma and, Lakshmi and, Durga, they're all personalities in the sense that they exist of their own right. They're their own people. And by learning about their stories and learning about their activities, their pastimes, their qualities, you can see some of what happens in your own life kind of reflected there. And you say, oh, well, I understand, what's going on for me because this has happened to this great personality. And it also gives you something to aspire to in terms of their, godly qualities, their good qualities. So they are their own personalities of their own right. And a lot of their teachings and a lot of their lives are kind of lessons in how we should be managing things as well. So from the Bhakti Yoga perspective, it doesn't have to be either or. Either it's an allegory or it's an actual person who had all these things going on. It's kind of both because they do exist. They are their own personalities and expansions of the, original divine source. And yet so much of what they go through is easily identifiable as our own kind of obstacles and struggles.
Yeah. This, it's so funny. I've come to this conclusion with the Bible. I'm not the only one. There's many before me, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell and these other scholars and things, but talking about that it's allegory, but then there's debate of the people who were like, want these people in the Old Testament or even the New Testament, whatever, to exist because they feel like if these people really existed, then it kind of proves their religion or proves their standpoint that no, Moses really was an actual person and he lived and he did this and whatever. But when it comes down to it, it's the same. It's kind of like a mirror image of even the debate you're talking about within the faith. But when it comes down to it, I stand upon like the power's not in if the person existed. Moses, David, Solomon, these guys could have never existed. That doesn't take away the power of the story. The power is when you read these stories and apply them to your life and see yourself in them and the ways that they overcame, you overcome, and the way they cast down the things that are, coming against them. And they face their giants in their life, those type of things. That's where the power is when you apply it to your life. Them just simply existing as historical figures really doesn't mean nothing except that you want to keep the religious aspect of it just to be right versus applying the principles of the faith to, to your life. So sounds very similar to kind of like the debate that's kind of going on within your belief as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that exists within all faiths. I think that there's definitely a fine line between people's level of comfort with, this is a person.
What if it's a lie or something?
Exactly. What if the story, and then people just took a story, that was meant to be a metaphor. And I think that it really calls us to go deeper into the teachings and also to seek out those who have been in the faith and in the practice a little bit longer to seek guidance, because their realization, because of their depth of practice, because of their, own life experiences and whatever's been revealed to them, can guide us. I believe very strongly in, finding spiritual teachers who can kind of illuminate the path for you. That way, if there's an obstacle that they can kind of guide you through, such as this, personalism versus impersonalism, necessarily by finding a teacher, they're just going to have a more developed perspective and they may kind of shine some light on something that we may not be seeing.
Yeah. That's awesome. So moving on to the music aspect of it, like this, we're in the live chat right now. People are asking, they want to know about the healing power of music, or can music be used to heal? I think approaching that would be from like the state of duality as well. If music can be caused to cause destruction and war and help you to grieve and cope and things like that, it can be used for healing as well. Have you had any I think as you get out there more and you've kind of been around, I think it kind of comes, especially with the type of music that you're doing. Do you get those testimonies from people like, I was dealing with this and then your music helped me to release it, or I'm able to experience God through your music, those type of things where people are experiencing healing by listening to your music?
I definitely have received the feedback that, my music has, moved people strongly. And I can relate to that because my music moves me strongly, not in the sense that, the music is amazing and that's why XYZ. It's because the music is infused with the power of mantra, and consciousness manifest through sound is going to have an effect. Just think of the power of words, the power of writing. Even when you read something, even though it's on paper, as you're reading it, it's the sound of your mind kind of reading it to you. There's a voice there that reads even as you read things that are on paper. So sound is absolutely the most powerful way of communicating from my standpoint. And I do feel that it's very possible to heal through sound. I don't think that, those of us who are into creating conscious music would feel justified in our efforts if we didn't truly believe in the power of sound to create, upliftment and healing and illumination and progress, essentially internally and also out in the world.
What were some of the things that kind of got you into music? I guess it's always been a part of your life and your faith or whatever. So is it like an expression of that? Did that kind of just mirror over, or was there like a mixture of some of the sounds of the ancient world meets some maybe stuff on the radio or popular music of the day? Was it? I mean, what was some of your influence as far as like getting into music?
Yeah, well, there's definitely that blend that you were talking about. My dad is a musician by profession. So I grew up in a musical household. He's a singer, he's a songwriter. He also plays piano. And he's, very well known in many places, South America, Spain. So growing up in a musical household, I was exposed to, what is our kind of primary spiritual practice, which is spiritual music and mantra meditation. But I also grew up listening to the Beatles and Pink Floyd and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. And then, as I was doing my own kind of musical exploration, that evolved into the R&B world. And as a teenager, I grew up very much in the kind of underground electronic scene in Caracas, in Venezuela, and, just kind of really exploring the world of music. I'm like really nerdy about music. I love to know about the artists and their equipment and their instruments and how they learn and how they write. So for me, it's always been a blend of traditional devotional sounds like qawwali music and kirtan, but it's also been, very modern. What is on the radio? What is out there? What are artists doing? Popular and also underground, alternative, independent artists as well. So it's a huge blend of kind of all of those things.
Yeah. It's beautiful because there's that electronic feel as well too. Some of the stuff that's kind of reminiscent of the 90s stuff too, which I love. Really cool. So there's a big difference when listening to music or versus like stuff that's on the radio. I hate to be judgmental, but some of the stuff that's on the radio now versus some of the names that you mentioned. So you didn't mention the people who are on the radio now. You mentioned Janis Joplin, like Elvis, the Beatles, these people, Bob Marley, like who put a piece of them came out and is on the music. Like they sung from a place of experience, a place of hurt, a place of glory, like whatever they're going through, really to embody what a psalmist would be. You know what I'm saying? Just to, and a part of them is in the music versus, somebody else. There's a difference between a songwriter writing a song for you, and then that person, you're getting a piece of that emotion. And you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there are these kind of golden periods of music where the artists are creating art because it's what's kind of born from them. You know, you don't hear later Beatles albums and go, you know, they were really trying to make a commercial hit here. I can tell they were aiming for the radio. It was like the opposite. They were so much trying to escape the commercialization of their music and their image that they went deeply internal. And what comes out is this like massive exploration of different sounds and feelings and all of their kind of inner experience. And that's super powerful. And at that time, the audience wanted that. They wanted music of substance. And I think that there's always been artists throughout time that are able to stay connected to that current of I make music from what is born, you know, from my heart and from my mind. And then, you know, there's just kind of what's going on now, or for however long it's been going on, maybe a couple of decades, where it's just commercial music. It's music to make money. It's music to kind of party to. It's not necessarily tied to an elevated consciousness, and it's not really, doesn't feel introspective. It's not a song that you listen to and you go, wow, oh my God, that really like, it resonates so deep. That meant something to me. It's just kind of like, well, that was fun to listen to. And then you kind of move on.
Yep.
There's a huge, massive difference. And I think that audiences are really thirsting for meaningful, conscious sound. Whether they know it or they don't is a different story. But definitely the more I kind of travel and tour and play and connect with audiences, the more I realize like it's not satisfying them. Whatever they're hearing on the radio is not filling that space that is kind of reserved for uplifting conscious sound.
A lot of what we're hearing now, even though I can't say that it's bad music. I mean, they know how to write a hit. These people know how to do it. And the song blows up. They get success from it. They live a, you know what I'm saying, very wealthy life off of it. They get in the top charts, but then maybe 6 months later, nobody's listening to that song again. There's so many songs that have come and gone within the last 10 years, 11 years, whatever, 12 years, that I know of that were huge hits, especially in like the hip hop realms and stuff like that. Nobody's riding down the street listening to this music anymore. That were number one singles in those realms and stuff. So, it's about, I think it's about having like music with longevity, like something that if a piece of you or a piece of that artist is in there, I think that's a piece of their life, and it's gonna live in there. Like it almost like creates a timestamp, right, of a piece of their life being in there, not versus just something that's formulated and kind of thrown together. So that's really cool. We're talking about that, but like there's all of these other artists too. It's that plight to stay relevant. Most of these guys, there's been so many bands, so many rap artists too, where like when they started out, they were hungry, like they wanted to be successful, but in their music was a piece of them. The first album is amazing, phenomenal. Sophomore maybe goes down a little bit, and then after that, they don't have time to write music. They have songwriters. They just they're living that lifestyle, and then they kind of fall off. And there's been so many people who are legendary, and as far as a career goes, like a lot of people are, I don't want to say blessed, but a lot of people who have died at the height of their success, like they go on, they are remembered for that body of work versus all these other guys who had to hit rock bottom, and then they put out records and records and records that nobody's resonating with anymore, but we still remember the old work, you know? It's this whole to remain relevant and the stuff that people are willing to do or staying hungry. But there's those groups like you're talking about that you anticipate the new material. I think Tool for me is a big one for me. But what are some of the people that kind of stand out for you? Like these groups are like, the first album was amazing, second album, but then it's like they're still going, but it's like they're just doing it because it's what they do, you know?
Yeah. Well, for me, I think probably the most salient artist and probably the most influential in terms of my own music is Björk. She is in her 50s now, and she's so many decades ahead of where everybody else is at. Like listening to some of her songs from the early 90s, from the early 2000s, you realize that's where music is going now, even in terms of just production, what to speak of songwriting and themes, and you know, and she's just constantly kind of pushing the envelope in terms of revealing, being authentic. Her last couple of albums are just as vulnerable and raw as it gets in terms of personal content, in terms of creativity, you know, and she has such a gift for presenting a strong, powerful, soft, vulnerable, feminine figure without tipping into that kind of commercial sexuality, you know,
Yeah, that's good.
that commodifying the female body, that kind of thing. You see, she's never slipped into that. And for me, that holds such a power from a feminine standpoint, that it's not about selling your body or selling your sexuality or anything like that. She doesn't feel asexual. She seems sensual and totally in touch with herself, but it doesn't feel like she's commercializing it. It just feels like she's expressing it like all other things in her world that she expresses. So for me, she's totally iconic in that sense. And I anticipate anything, anything and everything that she does, because she's just such a powerful creative force.
Yeah, that's when we're thinking about what's the name, Dolores, even from the Cranberries, I think is
Sure.
another example, man. Just her, well, you know what I'm saying, what she brought to the table, those songs and that creativity, and not just having the body. I know we see that a lot in like hip hop music, you know, that they have to kind of sell the body and sell the image with it versus just letting the music kind of speak for itself, man. But there are those females out there who were big back in the day, definitely like in 90s alternative, who were there that I love. That's like my main choice of music is 90s alternative. It just takes you back. It's like a time machine, man. It takes you back to like an easier time, helps you, you know what I'm saying, reflect and stuff versus what's going on now. But, and we're talking about people who didn't sell out, man. I think both of those names are mentioned or some of those, and I mentioned those people who have kind of died at the height of their success. So when we look at like Tupac, we look at Elvis, we look at there's so many names, Bob Marley. But what if, I throw this out there with people who are into music, like what if Tupac, being who he was, what he was into, what if he fell off? Like what if he got into the genres that evolved into some very garbage music, what we would call it now, but it was popular and it was the thing. Like what if he would have kept going and got into that? Nobody can fathom that someone that great could fall off like that. But I think we're seeing it every day with them still being alive. I look at groups like Bone Thugs and Harmony, which I'm like a diehard Bone Thugs fan, and those guys, what they did for hip hop music is just phenomenal. But they're still around, and they're putting out music that's kind of laughable at this point. Versus they've set the bar so high. So what do you think it is within you? Is it staying hungry? Is it just being true to yourself? What is it that helps you kind of maintain that level of authenticity? Is that what it is? Just being authentic about whatever it is, you know?
It's hard to say because I particularly feel like I'm such a kind of junior artist. I feel like I'm a student and I'm learning. So I also have that question. I don't exactly know. Instinctively, I kind of feel like it's like staying grounded and maintaining a sense of humility, that the work is coming through you. I think that that's an important element. You know, just 48 hours ago, we saw KRS-One here in our neighborhood venue, the Woolly, and he is as real and authentic as an artist can get.
He's maintained it.
Doesn't get more real than him. You know, we went to see him. He's playing to 150 college kids. It's not these massive, he's not trying to sell out arenas, but he gets up there on that stage and his skill is just like incomparable. You can't compare his skills as far as an MC, but what really hits home is when he starts speaking. He's up there and he's literally preaching. He seems like he's preaching his gospel, and he's educated, he's well-read, his personality comes through so clearly. And he said, you know, many times throughout his speaking and his rapping, he says, you know, I don't wear a chain because I've earned your respect. And that's a fact. He's up there, you know, walking the talk. It's not about what he looks like or how much money he has or, you know, his cars or whatever else that pop, rock, rap stars kind of use as a bar to kind of measure success and validity and stuff. His is an internal journey, and it's totally palpable through the way that he manifests. It doesn't matter what he's talking about. There's this kind of realness that comes through because that's an energetic feeling of he's practicing what he's preaching. He's not just talking about it, you know?
Who are some other names? I know you mentioned him. He's definitely, he was kind of founded upon that too, though. You know what I'm saying? Like that's been his message from day one. He hasn't deviated, and it's the message that stands the test of time. He's still preaching that same message, those belief systems. One group that does it for me, because they're still around. They've been around since the early 80s. They're still around, and they're still making hits. The Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah, sure.
A perfect embodiment of that, who's just staying true to what they do. The same type of style. Like it's that funk mixed with hip-hop, mixed with reggae, mixed with rock, and a little bit of everything, honestly. But who are some other people that kind of stand out for you that are like, that actually have been around for a while and they're still doing it? I think Metallica is another one, you know, those type of bands.
Absolutely. I would say, you know, Erykah Badu is one of those artists who is just constantly like in authenticity at all times.
Not trying too hard, you know?
No, totally not. And just exploring, you know, but in an authentic way, not in a commercial way, which I think is really valid. I think even artists who do really well mainstream, like Sting, you know, he's an artist that has this incredible longevity and he has so much range, and you can't really pinpoint what it is. It's not specifically his voice. It has something to do with his songwriting, something, but you just feel like he kind of lives as a true artist, and he's just kind of always in that zone, and he does it so kind of profoundly. I think he really lives it. I believe George Harrison was that kind of artist. You know, he did pass away, but I believe that he did transcend that kind of time element when a lot of his peers were kind of falling into these weird commercial traps. He was really going internal and allowing that to be, you know, the music that he was making. So I feel like there's many artists that are like that. You know, I think Lauryn Hill is like that, even though, you know, there's a lot of turmoil and turbulence there. I think that she was another incredible artist who was able to maintain this deep, deep authenticity and, you know, very strong.
That's probably why she's not on the charts and doing as good as you would.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? The way that we measure a successful musician now, because she refused to sell out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's symptomatic. KRS-One was talking about it at the show, actually. And he was saying, you know, the people who program mainstream radio know that you don't really like these songs, but that's what they're pushing now, you know, and people will go along with it. It's a symptom where like the audience and the artists are of one same consciousness. And, you know, the moment you kind of start to question that, you're breaking their flow, you're breaking the mold, you're kind of going against the system. You know, Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine is another awesome example of someone who just, you know, commercial success or not, is holding strong to their message and to their beliefs. And, you know, it produces really powerful art, but really powerful art is not always what people are searching for. Sometimes people just want kind of mindless fluff music, and that's what they're going for. And there's always going to be artists to create that. And then there are the people who really want to have an experience and go deep with music and kind of transform through sound. And there are those artists as well. Just the radio is usually not where you go to find them.
So, I mean, maybe, what if I'm being a little bit too harsh? What if, you know, the same way, because it's definitely happening, but what about the music too? Like, what if there is some type of connection in these songs that are coming out now? There are some groups that my daughter listens to that I'm like, there's nothing in it. I think it's fluff or whatever. Just like my mom looked at me with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know, she was into the groups I can't knock her for, because all the people you named, right? She was into the Zeppelin and Bad Company and some of the 70s rock, which I love. You know, we're talking about listening to the 90s alternative. That even goes back a little bit further of just some of that beautiful music. And there was something about an actual band getting together to create the music versus one guy in a studio with a laptop type deal. There's just that life to it, but it's definitely a disconnect with the generations. Maybe I am being a little bit too harsh to say that there's, you know, like all the good music died type deal, because there's some still good music out there. There's still some formulas, but it's definitely the generational gap, which my mother would have looked down upon my music, and I looked down upon maybe some of the newer stuff coming out there. But maybe there is still some sparks of creativity and stuff out there. I think it would be wrong to just label it all bad or whatever. But we definitely see a decline in it. That's got to be there versus just a generational gap, right?
Sure, I think so. And I think that for every time that there is that kind of vacancy where people are like, where's the meaning? Where's the depth? How come I don't feel moved and touched by this music? The next thing that happens is this wave of artists that kind of rises to meet that challenge, right? So why did the Beatles do what they did? It's because whatever came before was not satisfying enough. And then a huge wave of people heard what they were doing and said, actually, this is what we've been looking for. And the same thing can be said of Lauryn Hill, 30 years later. People didn't know that they needed to hear her until they heard her. And they were like, oh my, this is what we've been waiting for. She has it. She's saying whatever I haven't been able to articulate, whatever I didn't even know I didn't have. And I feel like that's happening now as well. There has to be this sense of dissatisfaction with the status quo to have these artists who are usually the kind of lightning rods of a culture. The artists are the ones who are first sensing like, wait a minute, there has to be something more. And as soon as they kind of get zapped with that lightning, they disseminate that through the, larger culture, and everybody goes, oh my God, that's what we had been waiting for.
There's, so I gotta say this. I don't know much of their music, but I've noticed this. So there is some hip hop artists who are emerging now, some younger guys, like really young. I think Little Peep was one of them. XXX Tentacion. These guys who are doing music, but it's hip hop music, it's rap music, but you can tell that their parents listened to Metallica. They listened to Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and Good Charlotte, these types of emotional punk rock type music that's influencing them because they're incorporating stylistically and the emotion that's there. So they're doing these rap songs about depression, about feelings and emotions and overcoming and struggling and things like that. So a lot of people in my generation who are like into the classic rap, into Tupac and the Bone Thugs, like as far as lyrically, a lot of the new music is just so watered down and they don't even really rap too much anymore. But I will give credit to some of these new people who I do see some spark of emotion there. Yeah. It's real. Even if you don't agree with it, if you don't like that, you can't connect with where they're coming from. Like it is a real emotion there that they're bringing something to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's room for everything in music. It's an ever expanding, experience. It's an ever expanding genre, art form. And so there's room for all the range of human experience there. Absolutely.
Someone's asking about music. This is Ray Lopez in the chat room. He says, what is some music that you would say is alive today? And I'll let you answer that first, and then I'll answer that. So what is some stuff today that really, really speaks to you, influences you? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, influences me definitely. The kirtan music scene is just totally sparking. It's such a powerful undercurrent of what's going on now in music. There are pockets in all communities of people practicing kirtan, and there have been artists that have been pioneering, kirtan music, not just, those affiliated with the Hare Krishna movement, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who was the first who brought mantra meditation, the kirtan art form to the West, but, even pioneers like Jai Uttal, Krishnadas, and the younger artists who are like totally trailblazers like the Mayapuris, who are keeping kirtan music like alive and popping and just like totally sparking the conscious music scene. I think that there are current artists like Nako and Medicine for the People, Rising Appalachia, Trevor Hall.
I was going to ask you. Make sure you say his name.
MC Yogi. Artists who are responding to the fact that conscious music needs to be out there. And all of their music sounds so different from one another. They're definitely showing their cultural roots, their spiritual roots. Yep. And you hear it. You hear that they are the real deal. And these people are, my peers in terms of age, but they're kind of just like leagues ahead in terms of how they're able to kind of influence and create this like massive community change with their art.
Yeah, big. I mean, some of the names you mentioned, especially those last couple, Nako, which has kind of been like a soundtrack for my awakening ever since I heard Great Spirit, like that song. God, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's people like him. You could tell like he's getting that information, whether he's singing from a place of desperation, and as well as you feel like his ancestors are speaking through him when he sings these songs, right? These are generational songs almost, just kind of revisited in a new way. And then Trevor Hall, like you say, and it's funny too, because you go back to your faith about the music that inspires you. There's a group or a ministry of musicians that I really respect, and I listen to their music all the time. But it's a Christian group called Bethel Music, and there's a handful of singers on their team, and every single one of them is powerful, prophetic. They bring something beautiful to the table, and it really embodies for me just the whole power and spirituality behind the music. Like when these artists sing, stuff happens. When you're talking about that vibrational frequency, when they these are people whose hearts are open before God. They're really seeking the higher things, love for humanity. They feel it. It's not because there's that Christian song list where they just kind of formulated the worship songs. But these are people like when they sing, you cry. When they sing, something happens in your body. It changes the atmosphere. So Bethel Music, for me, is a huge one. And I like how I go back to the faith, and you do too, and it's just so similar how much influence they have, and even how similar it is. You know what I'm saying? The faith in general. But I look at the music and stuff, and we're talking about the spirituality behind it, and there's like some teachings of Pythagoras, some of the esoteric stuff, where his understanding of music and things that they would allow and wouldn't allow, the music of the spheres and things, which he kind of brought to the table. But understanding the power of like what we may call demonic oppression or depression, right? That we go through, and we get in these weird states of funk. But we can listen to music, especially somebody like the people I mentioned or the people you mentioned that have the strong spiritual connection. They're intuitive with their music. They're spiritual people, and it comes out. They're healers in the physical realm, so therefore the healing power comes through their music. Those type of people, when they play music or tap in, those spirits of depression, those heavy burdensome, they can't exist in that same realm. Pythagoras talked about experiences like this. In the Bible, it has King David talking about these evil spirits that tormented King Saul, but when he began to play the harp and sing, the evil spirits would leave, like they couldn't be around, and it would bring him peace. Are there any similar stories like that in the Bhagavad Gita where it talks about like just the power of music and vibration and stuff in there? I know it there's a little bit of everything within in the study, but is anything that your mind goes through like straight to it when it talks about making you feel good or lifting the countenance and things?
Yeah, well, I wanted to speak to that first point that you said that, these people, when you're feeling a certain way or you have this depression, all of a sudden you hear these people and their music, and it totally like kind of uplifts you, and it kind of counteracts that darkness. And I think that is not just the positivity of their music, because so much of these artists that we named, their music also speaks about their struggles. I think that the power of vulnerability is that, I'm very influenced by like the writing of Brené Brown, Daring Greatly, where she talks about being vulnerable automatically sheds light. So being depressed is one thing, but coming out and saying, I have these feelings of sadness, I'm experiencing this darkness, and talking about that, with trusted people and community, that has its own transformative power, because you're shedding light on something, and then necessarily where there's light, there is no darkness. So certainly the Gita, testifies to that. Krishna tells Arjuna on the battlefield that he is the original sound of Om, and that before matter existed, there was consciousness through sound. So if that is true, then it means that all power of upliftment is possible through sound, And so for us, worship of the divine happens through sound. And whenever there is that, that is absolute purity, absolute beauty, absolute love. It is totally possible to counteract darkness with sound. And it's about consciousness, the sounds that you make are going to be a reflection of whatever consciousness you hold within. So for those people who are very developed in their spiritual practice, who are authentic, even though they may be struggling and experience contradiction and hopelessness, necessarily that kind of purity flows through them and they become an instrument of light.
That's good. That's wisdom right there. That's, you know what? That's when I started, that's when my podcast started taking off. My podcast and my music and everything was when, like, it's always been spiritual. I've always discussed spiritual topics, but when I was okay with my flaws and okay with contradictions or trying to be right about everything or whatever, and just embraced who I was as a person, to talk about the things that don't make sense. There's people who listen to this episode, then they listen to one that I did a year ago. They're going to hear contradictions. Some people call me on it and they hold it over my head, but it's about being authentic and being, look, I don't know everything. I'm still learning. So for you to come to me and think that I have it all figured out, you're totally wrong. And I'm okay with it. Like the religion that I deal with, a lot of people from Christianity coming out of it, we were in a realm of we had to have everything figured out and we had to have an answer for everything. And that's just not the case. We can pretend like we do. And if we don't, then it's like a chink in the armor. So moving to a place where you can be okay with your insecurities, your doubt, and say, a lot of this stuff sounds the same. It looks the same, but there's different ways of interpretation. And I agree with both. There's contradictions and I agree with both. Part of me's over here. Part of me's over here. That's okay. It's not, I don't have to choose. Like, so for you to be like, I'm forcing you, choose what side. You know what? There's beauty in all of it. I embrace all of it. And there's reasons people believe this and believe that about religion or their faith or whatever the case is. But to really walk in a place of authenticity, like you said, of not having it all figured out or not being this huge spiritual person, but it's like, you know what? I'm one with my folly. I'm one with the things that I love about me, but also with the things that I don't like. And they're there to teach me. I don't have to rebuke them. I don't have to cast them down at all times, but they're here to teach me. That's what I've seen people walk in, and that right there is what's most attractive to people. That's envious to see someone okay with their flaws, and you can't hold nothing against them. Did you see the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
I did, yeah.
And then at the end, Eminem like embraces his faults and the things that what they were going to use against him, that he was a white rapper, that his girl left him, he lived in a trailer, and all of these bad things. He's struggling financially, and he embraced it. Yeah, that's me. And then he took everything away from him, and they had no ammunition. And we were talking about Lauryn Hill. I know you've seen the acoustic CD she put out, where she talked about her power, and when she became more enlightened or spiritual was when she just lived in the light. And all these traditions talk about living in the light, so that my flaws. I'm not hiding anything from you. I'm open, so I take everything, all your arsenal away from you. It's so powerful, man.
Yeah, not just that. It's also, that's where some of the most powerful art lies, because in trying to understand, your flaws and, my darkness, my shadow side, all of those things, you need tools more than just the rational mind to get it. You need spiritual tools, and spirituality and creativity are interlinked necessarily because we come from the great creator. I'm very influenced by the work of Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. And she said that your bridge to God is your creativity, is your gift, because God is inherently creative. That's where we all came from.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So, to explore the darkness, using your creativity to see that beauty can come from that place, that you'll always be walking side by side with your shadow, and that shadow is healthy. That shadow is what's going to keep you seeking. It's one, who would be self-realized enough to just say, I'm done? That would be the end of their self-realization. It's always a journey. It's always seeking. It's always being open to learn and maintaining, what you were kind of alluding to, which is that beginner's mind. That's such an essential part of so many faiths, specifically the Buddhist faith and mindfulness. Beginner's mind means you're always learning. This is always new. You always approach with curiosity. You always produce this kind of feeling of, I don't know, let's see what happens. And I think that humility is the key, not just to spiritual advancement, but also to kind of longevity as a creative, because it means you're willing to be shown, you're open to learning.
That's a big part of what I kind of embrace, and it's also the big question about being intuitive and kind of leaning on the spiritual path of discernment as well. Because like I get a lot of people who come to me and they they want healing. They're facing trials and tribulation that they need help with. They need somebody to talk to. They want they want someone to lift that burden, right? And so it's the whole thing about learning which demons we rebuke off of people or help people, kind of rid them of, and which demons are here to help us to learn. Like there's things that we must go through to build character, and we learn from the darkness. Like when I was going through so many trials and tribulations that were literally like dark, dealing with dark entities, literally. When I was going through it, like I would have gave anything to get out of it. But now on this side, like I'm thankful that God, or say God, the Supreme Presence, sent that into my life for a reason. And I'm thankful because I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I wouldn't have the compassion for those who are going through those type of things. You know what I'm saying? So it's about learning which demons we learn from in our own lives, but also on the road of recovery, helping other people, and which ones do we rebuke. So that's a big part of it. Do you have any wisdom in that? Can you relate with that at all?
Definitely. I mean, I'm a therapist by profession. I'm a marriage and family therapist. And so definitely I experience what it's like to sit in full kind of awareness of someone else's deep, deep struggle. And a lot of times the answers, well, all the time, the answers are within them. And a lot of times what it takes is just for you to trust in that divine power within them, that God will reveal the path in perfect timing. God's time is absolute. We're mortal humans, and so we think in terms of the linear. We're like constricted by time, constricted by space. And once you kind of break out of that mold and you understand that, experiences are absolute, the time factor doesn't feel like such a stressor anymore. We're always in a rush. We need to be achieving. And that's a very kind of Western culture pressure, high achievement, success, perfect mental health, shame of negative emotions and negative experiences, that kind of thing. So when you kind of see, okay, I'm always in process, and perhaps my way of sharing healing is to just kind of sit with someone as they kind of experience the struggle and walk next to them, not do the walking for them, so to speak. It's such a powerful agent of change, and you really see the miracles that people can kind of start to realize in their own lives when they take the time and they allow themselves to open up authentically. Definitely, that's something that I've been fortunate enough to witness.
Awesome. Yeah. There's been some questions here in the chat, people asking about the 432 hertz frequency. Are you familiar with that? Do you use it, or have you tried it or anything like that?
It's not anything specific that I've experimented with. I've read a little bit about it here and there, but it's not something I have much experience with.
Cool. But there is something like of playing the different pitches that make you feel a certain type of way. Obviously, there's notes that you can play just on the piano that are going to make you feel more dark. I mean, or really high up notes as well that will also make this really eerie feeling, like if we're looking at maybe the score of a horror movie or something like that. But it's somewhere in between, in the balance or whatever. There's notes that can be played. There's frequencies during like meditation. I do a lot of stuff with just listening to different frequencies, or what do you call it, like binaural beats and stuff like that are pitched to a certain frequency to help you attain something or feel an emotion and stuff. And I've actually felt that as well. Like I've listened to like popular bands. You can find them online. There's like they'll take popular songs and then change the pitch to the 432 concert pitch, and you could feel it. Like it literally feels different. Even if it's a depressing song lyrically, it feels more brighter, and it feels like it brings something to the table. So that's really cool as far as getting into like the hertz and the frequencies and stuff like that. Have you experienced any of that as well, like during like the meditation, or even the mantras that are raised to a certain pitch and things as well?
Definitely, you can feel, if we were traveling actually with a bus tour, And some of the information that we were sharing is how, your body is made up almost entirely of water. And when you play certain sound vibrations under a petri dish full of water, you can literally see different forms start to manifest in the water. Yep. And so what that goes to prove is that sound is not disconnected from what it manifests physically. And then imagine what that can do to your mind, to your brain. There's so many subtle layers to that. So definitely, I've done meditations and different visualizations and mantra practices where you kind of move sound starting at your kind of root chakra all the way through the top of your crown chakra, and see how sound affects each different zone of your body, and start kind of channeling that energy consciously and seeing that, the different sound vibrations absolutely influence the way that you feel in your body, what to speak of the way that you feel in your mind. There's songs that can move you in a different language before you even know what the lyrics mean. And it has to do with vocal tone. It has to do with the frequency of the music, it has to do with chord arrangements and progression. There's so much there, in the Indian classical system of music, they have the science of raga, which is literally kind of an emotional science in the sense that they have certain scales that they use for different times in the day. Yeah. And those different times of the day are also designed to kind of arouse different emotions, different activities, different pastimes, different stories that take place at that time. And they're arranged like really scientifically. There's been, generations of musicians who are dedicated specifically to learning and teaching how these different sound vibrations and different pitches, frequencies, arrangements can have a huge impact on how you feel.
I like it because it's kind of, I like anything like that when you're combining the science with the spirituality. Mm-hmm. That stuff that we've, believed for years is now being backed by science versus where science is used to refute your belief system and some of the, the woo-woo stuff. It's actually proving it. There's a science behind it and all of this stuff, man. I think it's so beautiful. Hey, thanks for coming on, hanging out with me. You want to tell people where they can pick up your new album and check out definitely your new song with MC Yogi, Another Lifetime, and as well the song Fire, which the video for that's incredible. So go ahead and plug your links and stuff where people can check out your music.
Sure. So you can pick up my CD on iTunes. I'm also on Spotify. You can find me on Pandora. If you want to follow me, you can visit my website, www.danyamusic.com. Dhanya spelled Dhanya, and you can follow me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram. You can follow me while I travel, and I post clips of some of our live stuff as well as what I've been doing in the studio and kind of behind the scenes. I'm super excited to connect with people. I enjoy getting feedback, and I'm also open to booking the rest of this year. So if you know anybody, yoga studio owners, music festival organizers who are looking to connect, we still have some time open, especially in the fall. And I would love to come and share music.
Cool. Where are you located at? What part of the country?
I'm based in Florida.
Florida. Where at in Florida?
In Gainesville. It's like 2 hours north of Orlando.
Okay. I'm in Mobile. I've got friends right there in Orlando too. So I've actually have a friend of mine who owns a yoga studio over this way. So that's cool that you're actually doing a studio. So I'll see what I can hook up. That'd be awesome.
That would be great. We actually came through Mobile, I want to say end of last year. We did a little Southeast tour with the Mayapuris. So we're definitely, familiar with the Southeast, and we love playing around this area.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on, hanging out with me. It's been a blessing. Thank you so much. We'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. It's been awesome. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Dhanya. God bless.
You too.
Dhanya, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoyed the interview. Great interview. Great podcast. Great music. She has really good music. That song with her and MC Yogi is awesome. And speaking of those names, like MC Yogi actually has a song with Trevor Hall as well. So make sure you check out those names we mentioned. People are like saying that they're listening in the chat room and they're writing down these names as we share them. So make sure you go back and do your homework. This is the stuff that influences me, the stuff that I'm into. Trevor Hall's a big one. Bethel Music. MC Yogi's dope. Nako, Medicine for the People. And Dhanya. DhanyaMusic.com. DHANYA. DhanyaMusic.com. Check her out. All that good stuff. Hey, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Again, this is 2 podcasts back to back. lots of good stuff happening. Closing in on 100 episodes, guys. Thank you for all the support. I've come a long way within the last 6 months, ever since I was released from my job and decided to try to do this full time. I asked for your help. You guys have responded and are responding with a loud gong. Thank you guys for being in my corner. Thank you guys for supporting me and enabling me to do what I do. You guys get some type of edification out of this. You enjoy the conversations. I don't think it's so much me. I mean, there's a lot of people who love me. They want me to do more solo episodes, and they love this personal time that we spend at the end of the episodes. But then there's other people who really enjoy the eclectic type of guests that we get on from every walk and every background. Talking to Dhanya, like, it was hard, like, it's a mirror image of my faith, of what I believe in. It's kind of evolved into from a Christian perspective, which is the really crazy thing, right? Like, and I've had some people reach out to me and tell me I should look into that faith or whatever. But because it sounds like a lot of things I talk about. But essentially, I think we're all talking about the same thing anyway. So whether you want to put a name on it or want to classify it as a sect or religion of people that believe a certain type of thing, that's not even where the power is. I think that all religion is talking about the same thing deep down at the core, especially if we're talking about spirituality and understanding and interpreting the spirit realm. It just depends on which lens or which standpoint of view that you're standing at, looking at the same object. We're all looking at the same thing, but standing from a different perspective, we're seeing what appears to be something a little bit different. So I find joy in that. I find joy, a lot. I come out of the Christian faith that just was like, find out what makes you different and what sets you apart from all the other people, because you are different. You are, which there's truth in that, man. There's stuff that we are different about. You know what I'm saying? There's stuff that does set us apart. But I find so much beauty now, and not in debating people of why I'm different, but I just enjoy the conversations and why we're the same. There's this inward desire to know God, to know the divine, to want to know why we're here. And you see all these people, regardless of race or creed, those people who are really truth seekers at heart, and they're seeking for the truth. And they just so happen to be within another religion or within another faith or whatever the case is. But you see them hungry for the same things that you are. Like, that's the beginning of spiritual awakening, when you can see that. When you can acknowledge God in everyone and God moving through everyone. It's so beautiful. And I'm telling you, that is like, you want to have a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience, start there. Start with judging people by the fruit. Don't judge them by what religious book they have. Judge them by their fruit, the works that they're producing, what's coming out of them, what they're sharing with people. You know who the cool people to hang out with are. Like, who are the cool people? The people that make you feel better. The people who their religion is tangible. It's not religion because it's their father's religion. It's that they have a belief system that transcends religious thought or religious dogma. Like, those are the cool people that I really enjoy hanging out with and learning from. And so Jesus tells you to judge people. He says that, judge people by their fruit. A good tree does not bear bad fruit. A bad tree is not going to bear good fruit. We have an apple tree in the backyard. It's not going to give you an orange. That apple tree is going to be expected to produce apples. The orange tree give you oranges, and so forth and so on. So all you got to do is hang with someone long enough to really partake of that fruit and see what they're about. See if their religion or their faith, see if it has substance to it, and not just the belief systems, not even how deep it is. I'm telling you, there's so many Christians out there who can get so deep, so many Hindus, there's Muslims who can get deep, there's deep thinkers and all of these things. But it's about what's tangible. Like, what do you have that I can apply to my life for me to help me be a better father, help me be a better husband, help me to be a better friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are the things that I admire in a spiritual path that's tangible, that we can apply to our lives. And then it steps out even further. Like, that's just about being a good person. I think that most religions of some sect kind of deal with that. That's something that we all kind of want to do. But then it gets into manifestation and spirituality and connecting and stuff like that. And most of it, is saying the same thing. So do all religions point to God? Do all paths lead to God? So True Seeker, are you saying that all this is a big wheel and all the spokes lead to the center, which is God? I don't know. I haven't practiced all religions, so I can't tell you that. All I know is what is working for me, what I've experienced, what I've encountered the divine through, and I've been involved in a lot of different sects. I've been involved in a lot of different, you can call cults, you know what I'm saying, different forms of spiritual practice and spirituality. Even within the Christian church is full of cults and cult leaders. So I've been involved with a lot of them, and I'm just simply like she was talking about, being open with the flaws, being open with the things that the contradictions. So for you to I know there's so many like cliche things that church people say about the contradictions and how they can be explained and stuff like that, and you have to get to the bottom of it, you know what I'm saying, to prove yourself right. And hey, your eternal salvation rides upon it, so that could be kind of scary, right? Like if you're wrong about eternity, yeah, you don't want to be wrong about that. We talk about that a lot. That's an inward plight, we have to bring to the table. So look, hey, I thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you for supporting my work via Patreon. Like I said, so much new stuff there. The School of the Mystics Thursday night. You want to join that? Head on over to Patreon. Even if you can only give $1, like you'll get access that way. It's going to be good. I'm excited about this week. I've been wanting to kind of start something or do a teaching or a course or whatever. My stuff that I'm working on personally isn't done yet. I've got some stuff I'm going to bring to the table, but we're going to do this other course by Chris Valatin called Basic Prophetic Training for Prophetic Ministry, and it's about hearing the voice of God speak to us in our own lives and speak to us and through us as well. So learning how to keen in on that voice. Thursday night, 7 p.m. I'm gonna record those, so those of you who miss it, you'll be able to go back and listen. So we're gonna do that. Make sure you join right in at 7 Central, because the courses are going to be short, and so they'll be easy to run through. So I'm trying to read through some of these comments here at the end. Chris Barr says that 100th episode is going to be dope, son. That's what's up, bro. I might already be at 100, honestly. I'm sitting on a handful of episodes that aren't published yet. Let's see. Lane's Worldview says, you are a friend for the friendless, those stuck out in the mines in the midst of family and people with little understanding. Like you say, man, there is a lot of us out here with no one to talk to about these things. Yeah, man. Yep, it's about being open for the conversation, whether, it's not about being right either. It's just about being, right? Just understanding your place in society, your place in this world, and the things that you're into. I think it's okay to seek after, man. I think if some things are calling you, and even if I don't agree with it, like we talked about on the interview before this one, man, you have to follow the voice of the Holy Spirit for yourself. You got to follow your revelation of God. Like you can learn from me, you can glean from me. I could be your teacher, but you have to let the Holy Spirit teach you and guide you. It's like you could just learn and just take it and apply it to your life. If you're not doing that, then you're messing up and you totally missed it. So, but if you're inspired by the music, you're inspired by the podcast, and you're applying it to your life, and you're having your own encounters, you're doing it right, man. You're on the right path. Keep it up. So with that, again, thank you. I'm going to say God bless and shalom. I love each and every one of you guys. Stay tuned. More stuff. Share this episode if you enjoyed it. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/TruthSeeker. That's the best way to support me. Also, there's other ways to support. There's a bunch of books that I recommend. You can purchase those books on my website. If you go to the bottom, it says Truth Seeker recommended reading. You can buy those books physically. Another good way to get those books is through audio format. If you go to audibletrial.com/TruthSeeker. audibletrial.com/TruthSeeker. I believe the link is in the description. Go there and sign up for a free trial. You have to put in your credit card and all that stuff, but it won't cost you a thing. You get 30 days free. You get to get you a free book. And if you don't want to pay anything, put your credit card in and then cancel. You still get your month. Boom. That's how we work the system. We do it, baby. So, yeah, thank you guys for the support. Audible is really generous in supporting me for, like, each sign up. So I get a kickback off of all of that. So support the show. Thank you guys for doing so. It means the world to me. With that, peace and shalom. God bless. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Your will so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine. Your so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the Truth Seeker podcast, head over to truthseeker.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/truthseeker.